to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. It's the final week, baby. Woo. Final week of the regular season. I'm freaking out. My butthole's puckered. I don't know about yours, man. I see that trophy in the background there. That's I'm glad you put that out there because that's something we're both chasing.
Chasing, John, and I just, rub it for good luck. I give it a kiss once in a while, knowing that I'm still in all 4 leagues, man. This week is going to decide it all. So, John, we got some really good information for those listening, watching, and ready to tune in. I'm pumped for this week, man.
It's been crazy. And if you guys your leagues are anything like our leagues, you're just sitting here going, what are we doing? What is happening here? I don't know, man. It's so funny. You look back, and we'll do a few episodes at the end of the season here after the Super Bowls, and we'll look back at, what it looked like in the preseason. What were the rankings? How did guys end up? How they, what happened here? Nobody expected that the best starts of the week, you're looking at guys like Zach Moss.
No.
I mean, it's bananas, man. And we're going to talk about some of the quarterbacks starting this week a little bit later as well. Welcome to the show, everybody. Let's get going today. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. I really appreciate it. We've had just exponential growth this year, and we're just having fun together and doing things. Next year, we got some great plans for everybody.
Yeah.
So a lot of you are new to the show. Stick with us, guys. We'll finish the year strong, and next year, we've got some really cool shit happening. So thank you so much for joining us. Please, guys, during these playoffs, we got some really good start-sit questions this past week here from the last episode. Please ask us questions. We love that shit, and they're hard. We just got a question yesterday, and the guy gave us, okay, I need a receiver, tight end, and a flex, and gave us like 8 guys to choose from. I love that, but I'm like, okay, let me cancel my calendar and let me answer this question. It's really difficult.
I need to do a little bit of research to help him out. No, it's awesome.
I love it because it brings up things that we don't even think about sometimes.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh yeah, that is a difficult scenario. So I love it, man. Keep bringing the questions to us, guys. We love you. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Frankly Fantasy Football, Twitter, X, Frankly Fantasy F. You listen everywhere podcasts are found. Please make sure to listen on YouTube. Watch us on YouTube. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. We got episodes coming out every week. All right, guys, today we're going to do our week 14 starts and sits. Okay, we got some, Frankie's got some magic for us here. It's difficult. We got a crazy lineup this week. It's do or die for a lot of you. It's do or die for me in a few leagues, and it's going to be difficult. All right, we're going to do that, but first we're going to get into some news.
The season's out. Your listeners don't expect O.J. Simpson and flip out.
News and notes.
Okay, we're trying to get some status on some guys here for this week. It's still a little early. We're looking at really what happened on Wednesday as far as practice goes. So when I'm talking about these guys, you've got to monitor every single one of them. Do not sleep on this stuff, guys. Get active on your waiver wires. Get active picking guys up during the week. Take a look on Sunday mornings. Make sure everything's good to go. Make plans for these guys because there's some guys we're just not going to have answers. Some of the coaches are being a little cute too, and we're going to talk about that. Trevor Lawrence thought it was a devastating injury. He's not ruled out as of yet, which is pretty crazy, Frankie. He's trying to play this week, man. Do you see a world where he actually gets on the field this week, or do you think that's just a good sign for next week if you've got Trevor?
John, it's definitely not. I would be shocked if it's this week. Listen, they are already, I believe they're a game and a half in above for the division, so they can drop this game if need be. Yeah, it wouldn't be ideal for them, but they'll still be first in their division. So if I were them playing against the top defense with the Browns, Myles Garrett is getting healthier again, right? Zadarius is back. Ward is going to be back. Which is huge. And so for me, man, this isn't the game, right? If I'm the Jags, that I'm willing to bring back my franchise guy for knowing that you are literally in the playoffs as we speak today. So for me, man, I think that this is more prep for next week. I would be absolutely shocked if they're rolling out Trevor Lawrence after that injury.
Yeah, and CJ Beathard beat hard. He's got a shoulder injury too. I mean,
Yeah.
he was in limited practice, so I think maybe that's why they're doing this rhetoric, or maybe they just want to kind of confuse the Browns a little bit with that. But man, there's no chance he plays. Really, I know
No.
they're saying it, but definitely make plans to be without Trevor Lawrence this week. And without Trevor Lawrence this week, I mean, shit. Other than ETN and Evan Engram we talked about, it's going to be very difficult
Very
to
tough.
start anybody else. Calvin Ridley was already difficult to start with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I can't, if Beathard is starting, I don't think you can play Calvin Ridley. I would really look for another option, man. You have to get lucky, and that's hard to root for here. All right. Speaking of the Browns, Frankie, let's talk about a few of the Browns here. The Browns also, Kevin Stefanski is not naming the Browns starter for this week against Jacksonville. Let's talk about this same game here. You got Joe Flacco, who I thought was very serviceable. I mean, yes, he had shake off a little rust, but shit, he throws a beautiful ball, and he was not afraid to throw the ball down the field either, man. Are they doing this is this Stefanski just trying to be cute and trying to fuck with the Jaguars?
I definitely think there's an element of that for sure. Coaches speak, no doubt about it. John, I also think there could be a little bit of an internal struggle as well, meaning DTR looked decent. Joe Flacco comes in, signed him off the practice squad, or not technically signed him off the practice squad yet, but pulled him up, had a really good game for the most part outside of that pick at the end. And he was more than serviceable. And now what's interesting, John, is you have other players coming out, post players, like old school players like Ed Reed and things like that, saying if Flacco gets into the playoffs, watch out. And like interesting things, or this could be interesting because he's been there, he's done it, and arguably had, John, one of the best playoff pushes of all time in NFL history in 2013. So for me, man, I think that this is absolutely coaches speak. If I am the Browns and putting on my GM hat, I think Flacco gives you the best ability to win. It's not a knock on DTR. He's a 5th round rookie. Let's put it in perspective. He's a 5th round rookie, few starts under his belt. He's got, he wet his whistle a bit. Now let's let him learn even more from a guy who's a Super Bowl champion, right? He's been learning from that of Deshaun Watson, which is great. But now Joe Flacco brings a different level of veteranship. And so for me, man, I absolutely think this is coaches speak. I think it's definitely going to be Flacco. I think Flacco helped open up our passing game a bit more.
If it is Flacco, guys, I'm just saying right now, one of my starts of the week is going to be Elijah Moore.
Definitely.
We saw that connection was a real thing the last time Joe Flacco played, and it was with Elijah Moore a year ago. Was it week 5, I think, of last year? And Elijah Moore was heavily featured. We saw that again. And the next piece of news here, Amari Cooper, he's not likely to play. I really don't think he's going to. He's in the concussion protocol, which is very difficult to get out of. For the next week anyway, and he's got a ribs injury. I think they're going to save Amari Cooper. I don't think he's going to play. Make plans there, but Elijah Moore, I think you can fire him up with confidence. Elijah Moore, David Njoku, both of those guys I think could have very good games in this passing offense. All right. Let's move on here. We got the Jets. Speaking of quarterback controversy, why is this a controversy every week? Like I'm tired of who's it gonna be? Oh my God, is it Tim Boyle? Nope, they cut his ass after playing one game. Is it gonna be Zach Wilson? Is it gonna be who'd they pick up? Not Trevor Siemian. Was it Trevor Siemian?
Yeah, I believe it's Trevor
Mark
Siemian.
Rippon. Did they pick up Mark Rippon?
Brett Rippon? Yeah.
Brett Rippon, yeah. Brett Rippon, ripping farts, ripping throats. Yeah, listen, man, these guys are just, they're recycling these shitty quarterbacks back and forth. But they did name the little fucking Mormon kid the starter this week.
He's back.
3 times a week I have unprotected sex with your mother.
There you go. All right, man. I mean, does it really matter at this point with these assets? Garrett Wilson, can you play him this week, man? I mean, there's a lot of guys sitting there making flex decisions between Garrett Wilson and Nico Collins and Cortland Sutton and guys like that. Are you starting all of those guys over Garrett Wilson this week?
Yeah, John, I am for this. Well, let me rephrase that. I am actually a little bit torn between Nico Collins and Garrett Wilson. The only reason why I'm saying that is strictly because of the matchup this week. Nico will be going against Sauce Gardner. Sauce has been locking up people that he's playing against. So you could make an argument, okay, Zach Wilson's back. Garrett Wilson dominates the target share with Zach Wilson at the helm. So you could actually look to potentially make a play for Garrett Wilson over Nico Collins, strictly based on the matchup. After this game, it's Nico Collins all day, every day. Don't even think about it, right? And so, yeah, this game's a little nuanced, but man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding.
It's even more nuanced than that, because it's not as simple as Sauce Gardner does not follow a receiver around the field. He stays on his side of the field. So that's interesting. And what that can do is, they can run different motion. They can, move guys around. So I don't think it kills Nico Collins. I still have Nico above Garrett Wilson for that reason, because they can move him around a little bit. But you're starting Nico Collins. You're starting Noah Brown, by the way.
Definitely Noah Brown.
Start Noah Brown. It's going to be tough with the Jets defense, but they're going to find ways to get these guys the ball. It's not going to be just strictly on the running game, because it's even harder to run on the Jets. All right, enough about the little fucking Mormon kid. Justin Jefferson, JJ. Set to return this week. God, it's good to see him back, right? Hopefully, everybody was smart and did something here, because, man, it would suck if JJ's coming back and you didn't make the playoffs because you didn't make a move. But JJ's coming back. Is this going to kill... they're playing Las Vegas. Can you still start Jordan Addison just because of the matchup?
John, you could, if you need to, if you absolutely need to. Maybe you have Terry McLaurin, maybe you have, Curtis Samuel, maybe you have a few of these guys that are on bye weeks this week, and you really need a plug-in. You could, yes, you could absolutely make an argument for it. For me, I am not. I would not recommend starting him. I think that there's probably better options out there for you. I mean, shit, you just named Cortland Sutton. Love that. I would even certainly start Nico Collins over him, and probably even Garrett Wilson over him, if I'm being completely honest with you. So for me, John, I would definitely look elsewhere over that of Jordan Addison, because we're not really sure how it's going to look with Dobbs, with JJ and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and KJ Osborne, right? So there's a lot of mouths to feed, and JJ's coming back. The reason why he's back is because he's 100% healthy. That dude waited and waited and waited, and they're still in the playoff hunt. It's going to be a heavy dose of JJ, and everything else is going to be scraps.
I think so too. I think they're going to force feed him the ball, man. Speaking of, the Vikings did name Josh Dobbs. They are sticking with Josh Dobbs. It's not good that there's that kind of question about it. You know? I mean, with the story of Josh Dobbs, they're like, oh man, I don't know. Do we want him to start or not here? Can you start Josh Dobbs this week with JJ coming back? Yeah.
If you have Sam Howell, it was Sam Howell and thank you, Kyler Murray. John, yes, you can absolutely start Josh Dobbs. If honestly, this would probably be the game to do so. Now, level setting expectations, right? Max Crosby is going to be all up in his shit, right? Max Crosby is a dominant force, arguably top 4, top 5 pass rusher in the NFL at this point in time. So there's absolutely that. However, I think they're going to do a lot of chipping on him. I think they're going to be able to have TJ Hawkinson, really work him on the outside and bring in Alexander Madison to continue to provide, protection to that of Josh Dobbs. So for me, man, if you're not starting Josh Dobbs this week, it's going to be pretty tough moving forward, because he has his full arsenal this week. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. John, if Josh Dobbs shits the bed, I think then it's time that they're probably going to move on, realize, okay, he's truly a backup. We'll see what Jace Hall is or whatever it may be, and or Jaron Hall, I believe is what it was, and we'll go from there. So it's going to be interesting, man.
All right, interesting news out of Philly here. Dallas Goedert, he's been out for quite a while, got off IR. He has a very high chance, in quotes, to play versus Dallas. He was a full participant in practice. This is interesting. My question now is, the guy's been out for a handful of weeks. He's coming back. He may not be completely healthy, but it sounds like he could be. Are you starting Dallas Goedert? And what is the effect on Devonta Smith if he does play?
John, I'm definitely going to start Dallas Goedert if he is playing, right? If he is playing and he's rolling out there, I'm going to fire him up. He ended up playing against that of Dallas. And the reason why I'm saying this, John, is he played against Dallas already before the bye week. And he ended up putting up right? It was, what is that? 4 targets, 3 receptions, 50 yards, etc. So, and that was in week 9, John. And so I really think that right there is very accurate depiction of what we could expect from him. So yes, you could absolutely start Goedert. I don't think it's a smash play by any means, especially since Dallas has actually improved. And I think that Philly has regressed a bit. And so there's been some nuances there as well. What this does, though, for me to Devonta Smith, John, I actually think this could benefit Devonta Smith in this matchup specifically. The way Dallas defense has played, Bland, Stephon Gilmore, they have been incredible, not good, incredible. And so for me, now this gives them a little bit more of a headache in the middle of the field, which could actually open up Devonta Smith in some really interesting corner type of routes. They might have to go more to a zone D rather than a man D and more of the passing plays. So that's where Devonta Smith thrives. So for me, man, because, and just to give people insight, he sits in pockets of zones, and that's really, really good compared to that of AJ Brown, to where you're trying to get him a one-on-one matchup and you're throwing it up to him to make a play, right? A little bit different styles. So for me, man, I actually don't think this hinders Devonta Smith. In fact, I think that this could maybe even open him up a tad. Now, the issue is it will take away probably some targets from him, knowing that Goddard's back. So level setting expectation, but I'm actually bullish on both of them. And I think that they are absolutely going to need to throw the ball in order to keep up with Dallas's offense with the way Dak's performing.
Okay. Zach Charbonnet, running back for the Seattle Seahawks, did not practice Wednesday. He's questionable versus the 49ers. At this point, guys, I'm making plans without Zach Charbonnet. It's a terrible matchup anyway. Yeah, I mean, is there, what do we have? DJ Dallas that may be stepping in his stead here. Yeah. I wouldn't be starting any of the running backs for Seattle against the 49ers. No. Do you agree?
Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. Josh Palmer, coming off of wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers, coming off of IR. He has a possibility to play. We'll see if he practices the rest of the week. But he's got a possibility here. Could be sneaky for you in the playoffs. It's a guy that they desperately need in the Chargers locker room. Okay, Isiah Pacheco. This one, monitor this, guys. We're not going to know this until the last minute, I think. Did not practice Wednesday with a shoulder injury, but a lot of guys do rest on Wednesday as well. So just keep an eye on that. CEH, is this a guy we need to have on our bench, man? Definitely, guys. I mean, that and McKinnon. I mean, absolutely. I know McKinnon's been banged up as well. If Isiah Pacheco cannot go, they are definitely going to go with a CEH / maybe McKinnon if he's healthy type of thing. And if McKinnon's not healthy, we're going to get a nice dosage of CEH this week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So for me, John, yeah, I think that's a great call. All right, sounds good. All right, that's the news. Let's get to our hit it and quit it, baby.
I want you to hit it.
Yeah, I want you to hit it and quit it, Frankie. All right, this week, week 14, guys. For a lot of you, it's the last week of the regular season. We're staring into the abyss of the playoffs and your livelihoods and everything. All right, week 14, we've got 2 teams on bye. We've got the Arizona Cardinals and we've got the Washington Commanders. Frankie, before we get into this, I just want people to understand, we've been talking a lot here about, you know, the injuries to the quarterbacks and to all of these shitbag quarterbacks that have been starting and how different that is than injuries to running backs, receivers, and et cetera. You can fill in running backs, receivers, they become stars. Zach Moss, for instance, you know, guys who you'd never think would be there. With the quarterbacks getting hurt, it just kills all of the fantasy assets on that team. I want to point out this week what week 14 quarterback matchups we have, Frankie. This will be very interesting. We had,
all right.
Of course, last night, we had Mitch Trubisky versus Bailey Zappi.
Yep.
Sounds great. Yeah. Hey, put that on Amazon. That sounds great. All right. We've also got Josh Dobbs versus Aiden O'Connell.
Ooh.
Man, I want to, you know how much more I want to pay $800. Yeah. I want to pay $800 to go to the Vegas Stadium to watch those 2 fucking guys play, you know?
Yeah.
Then we've got Gardner Minshew versus Jake Browning. Oh, man. Ooh. Big time AFC matchup here. That's going to be scary. Now we've got two teams playing for the playoffs. These guys are almost locked in for the wild cards here. We've got CJ Beathard versus Joe Flacco. Whoa, baby. All right. What year is this? Is this 2006? What's going on? All right. Hey, we're not done here, Frankie. We've got Danny DeVito over here in New York. All right. Versus Jordan Love. That should be a great matchup. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, these guys are starters. They started for the year. We got Baker Mayfield versus Desmond Ridder.
Whew.
Absolute barn burner.
Really exciting.
Oh, we're not done. We're not done, Frankie. We're going to wrap up the week here with Jameis Winston versus Bryce Young. I mean, not going to be any turnovers in that game, right?
Never.
And then, of course, you've got Will Levis going to do his best against Tua. We'll see. That seems pretty evenly matched right there as well.
Wow.
The point is, guys, is that this really makes it difficult to not only play a lot of these guys, but to predict what's going to happen. I mean, we're talking about this affecting guys like DJ Moore, JJ, Jordan Addison, Devontae Adams, Michael Pittman, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper. I mean, it just affects everybody. Drake London and Kyle Pitts and
Deontay Johnson, George Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, all of these guys, it makes it so much more difficult when you don't have the star quarterback in there. Also makes these games really difficult to watch, too. But we're in fantasy. I digress. We've got to figure it out. We've got to play the hands that are given to us, guys.
Yep.
So we're going to have to play our offsuit a little bit. Frankie, let's talk about some starts and sits that you're looking at. Some guys that you really like this year. Give us your tier one of the 12 to 16 team leagues. Who do you like this week, buddy?
John, love it, man. So this week, tier one, big time week, guys. Do or die. The first guy I'm firing up, and I'm putting my eggs in this basket, and I am personally starting him as well. Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid, John, has been a rookie sensation. We called it from the get-go at the rookie review. We said, listen, it might be a guy that comes on late. Something happens to Dawson Knox. This dude could explode. It's exactly what he's done. He's been tight end number 13 without him basically, getting the rock for the first half of the entire season. And so, John, they're playing against that of the Chiefs this week, man, at Arrowhead. So there is a lot on the line. Buffalo is literally clinging to everything, every ounce of hope that they have in order to get it over the line. So, John, against the Chiefs, I see this being a huge, high-scoring type of affair. I get it. Patrick Mahomes has had kind of a down season. I get that the Bills are, a 6-win team at this point in time. Throw all that shit out the window. These two teams are borderline rivals at this point. So for me, man, I love having the ability coming off of a bye week. Josh Allen, it's going to be Stephon Diggs, and it's going to be Dalton Kincaid, especially with Dawson Knox not 100% healthy yet. Lock him in, baby.
Dalton Kincaid has had no less than 6 targets since week 6.
Yep.
I mean, that's fantastic. You get a tight end that gets at least 6 targets. It's beautiful, man. And they love him in the red zone as well. So
love him.
You just got to hope. You got to hope one of those are touchdowns. But man, yeah, great start this week. They're going to need him. Who else you like? Looks like you like somebody else in that game.
I was going to say, man, I'm going to stay in this game. I'm rolling with Rashee Rice. Guys, Johnny and I have been beating the drum on this guy. And it's strictly because they have no one else. No one else is panning out. Kadarius Toney has been a bust. And you know what, John? You called that. I was against it. It is what it is. I was wrong. And Kadarius Toney is a bust right now. MVS, whatever the hell's going on with him, he can't catch a fucking ball down the field. So sorry. Sky Moore might be a massive miss on a draft pick for when they drafted him 2 years ago. So, John, for me, man, Rashee Rice has truly come out, and you're starting to see this synergy and this relationship build with that of Patrick Mahomes. You look at what Rashee Rice has done, guys. He's the number 36 overall receiver in half PPR. He's averaging almost 10 points a game. And over the course of the last 3 weeks, he's actually performed pretty well. 5 targets against Philly, 42 yards, right? Not a big time potential there. He had 6.2 points in half PPR, but I love the 5 targets. Here's the key. The last 2 games, though, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 107 yards, 1 touchdown against Vegas, 21 fantasy points. And then last week at Green Bay, right, he still had 9 targets, 8 receptions, 64 yards. And so, John, in the last 2 weeks alone, 19 targets for this kid. The Chiefs are no longer top of the AFC. So they are fighting for something. They actually have something to fight for, which we rarely see with the Chiefs over the last few years. So for me, man, Rashee Rice and what I think is going to be an absolute blow up type of game in regards to high scoring. I love this matchup. It's going to be fun as hell to watch.
You know who, Rashee Rice, and he reminds me of Zay Flowers. He's kind of filling that role for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's hard to pepper him with tons of targets, but he's the guy who's finding the soft spots in the zones. I mean, that's really, most of these teams are in zones now. And these kind of shiftier, smaller guys who, you know, are just run great routes. I mean, these are the guys, you put a guy like that with Patrick Mahomes, fantastic. That's
Totally.
why you see 9-10 targets, you know. But you're getting 9-10 targets from Patrick Mahomes.
Gold.
You take that guy. You take that guy. Absolutely. Love it, man. I'm starting him in my flex this week, so I hope you're right, and I trust that you are, baby.
Hell yeah. Let's go, baby. John, this next guy, I'm going to go with Sam LaPorta. Yeah, I'm starting 2 tight ends. And guys, I've even had somebody ask me, I have both Kincaid and Sam LaPorta. Do you feel like I could start Kincaid in my flex? The answer to that is hell yeah, I do. I definitely do. And this is a very rare occurrence. Usually I would say don't do double tight end, right? It could get messy. You know, the last time I saw that, it was like George Kittle with that of Mark Andrews or George Kittle with Kelsey or something along those lines. It's been a while since I've said do this. This I believe in. Sam LaPorta, John, has been nothing short of sensational. He's doing something that no other tight end has done in years, really. It's been like decades. And so, John,
Jeremy Shockey. Jeremy Shockey really was the only rookie tight end to do anything. Everybody thought Kyle Pitts was going to be that guy. He was not. Sam LaPorta, he's that guy.
He's that guy.
He's making a push for offensive rookie of the year. That's crazy.
John, he is the number 3 tight end in half PPR. He's the number 61 overall player in fantasy in half PPR. He's averaging almost 12 points a game in half PPR. What he's done over the last few weeks, man, it's been pretty incredible, right? And I'm just looking at strictly from a target share perspective. Go after the bye. He had 5 targets, 4 receptions, 40 yards, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 18 yards. So that was a bit of a down game. But these last 2 games, man, have been unbelievable. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 47 yards and a touchdown, 9 targets, 9 receptions, 140 yards and a touchdown. John, what I'm getting at is this dude is a target machine, even with Jamison Williams coming back, even with Amon-Ra St. Brown, even with, right, that of Josh Reynolds. And Jahmyr Gibbs getting some targets out of the backfield. So for me, this is what Jared Goff does. He is he is a top tier receiver, and he has this tight end, and that's where he feels comfortable. So for me, man, I love Sam LaPorta against Chicago. I think this is a division game that absolutely Detroit needs to win now with the emergence of the Packers, and they just beat them right over Thanksgiving. The Packers beat the Detroit Lions, and Minnesota's still not out of it. So Detroit needs to whoop Chicago's ass, and I think they're going to be on the backs of that of Amon-Ra and Sam LaPorta this week.
This is going to be a pissed off Lions team, man. You know,
Pissed off Lions team.
Dan Campbell's eating those fucking Velociraptor eggs, and you know he's out there working on his glamour muscles. And,
That's right,
yeah, man. He's getting that team fired up. Yeah, I love Sam LaPorta this week, man. Who else you got,
John? For the last one, for 12 to 16 man league here, guys, we're gonna go with Brandon Cooks at Philly against Philly at Dallas. So, guys, you might be thinking, Brandon Cooks, he's washed, all this other shit. Well, what's been interesting is actually in the last, since week 10 pretty much, John, so the last 3 weeks, he has had, against that of the New York Giants, he had 173 yards, 9 receptions, and a touchdown. He ended up having an okay game at Carolina. He had 3 receptions for 42 yards, and then had another great game at Washington, 72 yards, 1 touchdown and 4 receptions. John, Brandon Cooks is absolutely becoming a part of this offense more and more every week, and actually is supplanting that of Michael Gallup almost completely. And so you start thinking about, okay, well, target share could be a problem. Sure. But that's never been Brandon Cooks the way he operated. He's not a target dominated type of receiver. He's a big play guy. He is the one stretching the field. And the possession type of receiver is going to be that of CeeDee Lamb. And so for me, man, I really think that Brandon Cooks could be sneaky, especially against the Philly defense, who is quite terrible against the pass.
All right, let me ask you this. First of all, I have Brandon Cooks. I'm staring at this decision already, wondering what to do. And I agree with you. He is a smash start this week. This is the time for him. They're going to have to throw the ball. Philly will score. Brandon Cooks has really come on. The way Dak's been playing, he's been insane. Do I play Brandon Cooks over Zay Flowers this week? Zay Flowers at home against the Rams.
John, I am leaning going more towards that of Brandon Cooks this week. That is a really tough decision. Zay Flowers has been pretty damn good. We're talking the number 40 overall receiver in Brandon Cooks, the number 37 overall receiver in that of Zay Flowers, right? Zay's coming off a monster game before the bye. But prior to that, John, he had single digits every week, except for week 6. So after week 6, he had single digits every single week until that of the week 12 matchup. So for me, man, we haven't necessarily seen a massive uptick in production after Mark Andrews went down. It actually seems like it could be more OBJ, could be even a little bit of peppered in with Rashad Bateman, who, by the way, is getting healthier. He's always hurt, but we'll see what happens if he's able to play. So for me, man, I would rather go with a team that I know throws the ball a fuckload more. And that's strictly an opportunity type of start. So, guys, that's a really good question because, John, you could technically consider Zay Flowers the number 1 receiver on the Baltimore Ravens. I think that that's fair to say. Yeah. But in these types of scenarios, it's kind of like, Dak's going to throw the ball a lot, right? Because Tony Pollard against that run game of Philly, that ain't going to be super sexy, right? That's going to be really tough, actually. I was borderline teetering on, do I even start Tony Pollard this week? Because that's how tough this matchup is. Of course you are going to, but it's tough. So then you go back to, okay, game script, game plan. I think that the Baltimore Ravens could end up boat racing that of the Rams just by running it alone. And then I also think, though, Dallas will not win the game unless Dak is throwing the ball effectively and efficiently down the field. That is the difference for me. So I'm leaning Brandon Cooks in that play.
It is very situational. And one thing I just did in my head, I just said, all right, well, let's flip these guys on teams. If Zay Flowers were on the Cowboys and Brandon Cooks were on the Ravens, who would I start then? I'm starting the Cowboys receiver.
Definitely.
Because of the way they've been playing. It's because of the matchup. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. I'm with, thank you. Asking for a friend once again.
Yeah, of course. Tell your friend I said hello.
Frankie, I only do this podcast just so I can get time with you to give me start-sit advice. That's
right.
Really it, man.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just intimate one-on-one, hey man, let me help you out.
Yeah, exactly. I assume then you're starting Brandon Cooks over Garrett Wilson?
That's a tough one. I would, and it's not sexy. I'll tell you that much. And it's definitely risky, but for me this week, I probably would, just because you don't know what's going to happen with that Jets offense. I mean, it is truly putrid. What's going on there?
Yeah. Way more opportunity for Brandon.
Way more opportunity.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, man. What else you got?
So we're going to go tier 2 now. So that was 12 to 16 man league or woman league out there. The women's league, shout out. Right? We go, my wife and my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law and my mother and all those women out there that are doing leagues. Fuck yeah. Good luck this week, okay? So now we're going to go tier 2, 8 to 10 person league here. And first guy I'm jumping on board, and again, 8 to 10 person league or man league, there's a lot of players that you have to choose from. So for me, John, this is going to be a little bit difficult, but I'm going to start Jordan Love. We talked about him last episode. you probably already have, right? If you're thinking it's 8 or 10 man, there's top 10 quarterbacks are off the board. You might be looking at a couple guys to step in. Maybe you have Sam Howell and Kyler Murray, and you're looking for that additional person. Guys, it is Jordan Love at the New York Giants. We've talked about him at length. He has an unbelievable playoff schedule. He's been absolutely on fire. And on top of it, the way he's throwing the ball and the way he's emerging within this offense, John, he looks incredible. And so for me, Aaron Jones is really banged up. They can't fully rely on A.J. Dillon. It has to be Jordan Love taking them to the promised land. So that's why in this matchup, it's absolutely gold. Fire him up and enjoy what you're going to see this week.
Well, it looks like, looking at the notes here, Frankie, it looks like you've got a stack that you want to start there. Since you talked about Jordan Love, you might as well move on to the next guy here.
Guys, with Christian Watson banged up, he might not play. Therefore, I am all in, not just a little bit in, I am all in on Jayden Reed. Jayden Reed has been awesome this year as a rookie. He's the number 31 receiver in half PPR. He's averaging almost 10 points a game in half PPR. And what's interesting, John, even in a tough matchup against Detroit, right, or even that of the Chargers or the Pittsburgh Steelers, right, he's put up almost 16 points against Pittsburgh, 17 points against that of the Chargers in week 11. Week 12, he put up 13 against that of the Detroit Lions. And yeah, last week he had a bit of a down week, and it happens, right? It's a rookie receiver playing against a good defense, and that of the Kansas City Chiefs. But what was interesting, he still saw 5 targets, caught 4 of them. It just so happens they were all very small, very short routes, and it was 16 yards. So he ended up only having roughly about 4 fantasy points for the week. So the issue with Jayden Reed is that floor is there. I'm not going to act like it's not there. But the beautiful thing is that if you're looking to get into the playoffs, if this is a must-win week, you want a ceiling play. That's why I'm picking Jayden Reed. His ceiling is there, and Christian Watson is hurt, and the matchup is beautiful, and Jordan Love is throwing the ball his way more often than not. So because of that, John, we're looking at the last 4 weeks here: 5 targets, 6 targets, 8 targets, 5 targets. I love what I'm seeing. It's only going to go up with Christian Watson hurt. That is why I like Jayden Reed this week.
I love it, man. I love when you throw out something when you're like, whoa, wait a second. This is 8 to 10 team leagues that you're saying.
8 to 10 team leagues.
Jayden Reed this week. Love it, man. That's a bold take, and I like
risky.
it.
I'm not saying it's not risky, but what I'm telling you is there could be serious ceiling potential here for sure. No question about it.
And when you're looking at DFS, I would imagine you just
smash
love him in DFS, right?
Smash. John, he's probably floating around, I don't know, 45 to 4,800. Probably you could pick him up in DFS. Guys, that's fucking gold. That is gold for daily fantasy. So yeah, man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, and could be really sexy for stack. Goddamn right.
Got to throw that out there. Who else you got, buddy?
John, I'm going to go with the guy over the last 5 weeks that has been the number 5 overall running back in half PPR. Want to know who it is? Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is the number is just been dominating. Okay. Yeah, this is the guy that I wanted to kick him in the fucking head 3 years ago. I get it. I understand. I was that guy. Still want to kick him in the head. But the thing is, I'm going to start him this week first. Playing against that of Indiana, what we have seen, John, against a good defense in Jacksonville, he cut him up. He ended up having 49 receiving yards. He had 19 carries for 68 rushing yards. He had 6 receptions. 6 and 2 rushing touchdowns. The reason why I like Joe Mixon is exactly for the reason that I said, John. It is the target share. In the last 2 out of the last 3 weeks, he's had over 5 or more targets. He's actually accumulated 14 targets in the last 3 weeks as a running back. And listen to what his receiving yardage has been. 31 yards 3 weeks ago, 44 yards 2 weeks ago, 49 yards last week alone. And then you start peppering in his rushing ability. John, if Jake Browning continues to do what he's done, and I'm talking not 32 for 37. I'm not saying putting up those kind of numbers. What I'm saying is checkdowns. if he continues to be game managing, giving them an opportunity, putting them in a position to win, Joe Mixon can absolutely make this happen. So for me, man, I'm all about Joe Mixon against a tough defensive team in that of Indiana. I like his upside. Let's roll.
I love it, man. And Joe Mixon, Browning and the Bengals need Joe Mixon. If they lose Joe Mixon, they are fucked.
They're done. Yeah.
Because the only way this quarterback is going to be able to succeed is if they've got a solid running game and he has a safety blanket to check down to in Joe Mixon. And yeah, I mean, the targets over the last few weeks, everything you just said, fire Joe Mixon up. We talked about Joe Mixon. We didn't realize he was going to have a backup quarterback, but that just makes his value that much more. I mean, you're good with him for a couple of weeks here. Against Indianapolis, you've got Minnesota next week, first week of the playoffs. Definitely going to fire him up for that. I love it, man. Yeah. With
John, the last guy in this 8 to 10 man league is Jahmyr Gibbs. And the reason why this is a risky start as well. David Montgomery's back, right? And things like that. But dude, Jahmyr Gibbs at Chicago should be brilliant. It should be a slam dunk. And the reason why I'm saying that is last time he played Chicago, John, he only had 8 carries, right? Splitting the carries with that of David Montgomery. He still had 36 yards. But what was fascinating is he had 59 yards receiving. He had 6 receptions and he had a rushing touchdown. John, Jahmyr Gibbs' receiving output has been nothing short of impeccable outside of last week. Last week was a down week for him. It just happened that way. He's had, since week 7, 10 targets, 5 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets. Week 12, he had 8 targets, and last week he had 2. It was a game scripted out. John, it was awesome. He has been awesome. And so when you're looking at this matchup here, it should be a smash play. I wouldn't overthink it. Fire him up.
Absolutely. They're going to come out. We talked about it. Pissed off. This is a game in their division. They just got their asses kicked. This is going to be a big game, man. And Jahmyr Gibbs, 100% looks great. He's the running back. Where is he right now? He's a running back 15. He's creeping up being a RB1.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. It's good to see, man.
Very interesting.
All right. Who do you not like? Who are we sitting? Who are we saying pass? Who are we quitting?
Oh, yeah. Girl, tell me. So we are quitting. Number 1, Kenneth Walker. Guys, Kenneth Walker hasn't played in a few weeks. The last game he played in was the Rams, got banged up, right? And now you're going to be rolling him out at San Francisco against a pissed off San Francisco team. No, you're not. Don't do that. So for me, man, you got to look elsewhere. He's also, as I mentioned, he's been banged up. So if he is healthy, knowing Zach Charbonnet is banged up as well, John, I don't like any of this. I really think we need to wait and see how Kenneth Walker ends up coming out of this game. And John, not to make things any easier for him, after this week he also has Philly, and then he goes to Tennessee and then Pittsburgh. So if we can get past these next 2 weeks, maybe 3, you can have him for your Super Bowl, have at it. Or even the semis, you want to start him against Tennessee, totally good with it. Against San Francisco, knowing he's been hurt, man, I'm sitting his ass this week.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the news. Any of the Seattle running backs, it's just a very unfortunate schedule how things shook out this year. I don't like starting them anywhere the rest of the playoffs, man. I just don't. I don't think they're a great play there. All right, who else
John,
you got, buddy?
My next sit and quit it, man, is Khalil Herbert versus that of the Detroit Lions. Khalil Herbert, man, has actually been abysmal since he's come back and healthy. I mean, I did at least thought he was going to be in contention to take the lead of the bulk of the share of the load, and he hasn't been. And John, we're looking at what he's done in week 11 against that of Detroit. He had 16 carries. That's a lot. That's a lot of touches. 35 yards. 2 receptions for 6 yards. What did that equate to? He had 5 points in FPPR. He then goes to Minnesota, and his volume went drastically down. We're talking 6 carries for 24 yards and another 2 receptions. Guys, I am not willing to walk out Khalil Herbert. No, I'm firing on all cylinders, trying to get my ass into the playoffs. Don't anchor that on Khalil Herbert. Take a bigger shot on somebody who has a ceiling. Don't go for a floor play in somebody like this, especially in a backfield that has a committee. They're trying to get Roschon Johnson involved. They are actively trying to make it work for him. And if not, We saw what Deontay Foreman has been able to do. What happens when he comes back and is fully able and capable, to really take the lion's share? Now it's a three-headed monster in the backfield already. Floor is much lower, and Khalil Herbert hasn't done anything with the opportunity that he's gotten. So for me, guys, go elsewhere. Look away from Khalil Herbert, pick up someone else, and try to find a higher ceiling play.
And in my mind, this is very similar to what we just talked about. I'm looking for better options everywhere. This is kind of like the Seattle backfield to me, where there's a couple of guys. This is even worse. They could run 3 different running backs here with the lack of volume against a very good and pissed off Detroit defense. I wouldn't start any of the Chicago Bears running backs. Not when you've got this much on the line, man. It's too cute. Who else you got, buddy?
John, I'm actually going to go with the guy we already mentioned here, and it's going to be Jordan Addison. If you have to start him, you can. Again, it goes back more to what I was saying in regards to, I don't know how this is going to look. No one does. Josh Dobbs, right, hasn't necessarily been the pillar of consistency. He was for a minute, but he's come back down to earth. And so now you have JJ. Now you have, right, TJ Hawkinson. You have KJ Osborne. You have Jordan Addison. You have Ty Chandler and Alexander Madison. Too many mouths to feed. We haven't seen Josh Dobbs be able to support the level of, people that he's going to be supporting. I think it's going to be JJ and TJ Hawkinson, man. And unfortunately, Jordan Addison could be left behind. Now, you might have to start him, and that's okay. That is more of a ceiling play than that of Khalil Herbert. That is more of a ceiling play to me than some of these other guys that you might be considering. So if you're looking in that type of realm, okay, fine, fair. But if you're not, and you're deciding between him and a few others, guys, there's other people that have higher ceilings. I would start Zay Flowers this week over Jordan Addison, right? And somebody like that. It doesn't need to be a smash play. It just needs to be somebody that we can see a little bit more consistency from, knowing that JJ's coming back, etc. So that's why it's more of a situational sit, John, rather than, I just don't know if we can start Jordan Addison the rest of the year. I don't think that's the case, but for this week, we have to start seeing what happens when JJ comes back.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep hammering this. So
Okay.
Jordan Addison or Garrett Wilson this week?
I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. This week. Number one receiver.
Find a guy.
You have to
find a guy. Yeah, there we go. All right.
John.
All right, who else you got, buddy? Wrap it up.
My last sit here, guys, we're going to go with Calvin Ridley. So, which means that he's probably going to boom. Just letting you know. Every time I say it, he's going to boom.
Last time you did that. Yeah.
Guys, this is not a good matchup. Denzel Ward looks like he's coming back. Trevor Lawrence is banged up. He's probably not going to play. CJ Beathard is also banged up. So who knows what's going to beat hard, baby. I'm not beating hard on that of Calvin Ridley.
He's got that shoulder injury for, beating hard, I guess.
Beating hard. That's what happens.
Take it easy on yourself,
yeah,
CJ.
just relax, Siege. Jeez, man. Jeez. But yeah, for me, man, I just don't think Calvin Ridley's a guy at this point in time that I am willing, if I'm fighting to get into the playoffs, knowing situational things, I would actually lean more towards starting, as crazy as it sounds, Garrett Wilson actually over that of Calvin Ridley this week. Because of the matchup, because Denzel Ward's back, because of the quarterback play, I want a guy that I know is going to dominate target share.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, we talked about it earlier. There's no way you can throw him out there and feel good about it. It's a total dart throw. And against the Browns defense, with their secondary being healthy now, terrible matchup. All right, Frankie, let's look at, thank you so much for your starts and sits, by the way. They are great. I do seriously ask you questions about my teams just to see. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. All right, let's look at some streams for this week, guys. We're going to look at a couple of streams. Those of you that are playing the quarterback carousel, and those of you, everybody's playing the tight end carousel for the most part, and some defenses. So who do you like this week? Let's start with the quarterback. What's a good streaming quarterback this week?
A good stream this week, John, Justin Fields. Justin Fields versus Detroit. And the reason why I like him, his rushing ability. So for me, man, I think there's some value here. If you need a streamer, kind of a long shot, throw up a Hail Mary, fire up Justin Fields. He might be able to get the job done.
Yeah, Justin Fields has been extremely disappointing. But, I mean, here's why I think it's a good risk to take on the stream is because they are going to be behind in this game. Definitely. They're going to have to throw the ball. They'll probably have a total of 10 rushing attempts by running backs, total, between all three of them. But Justin Fields is going to have to throw the ball. We'll see what he can do. He's so up and down. But yeah, I mean, I think because of game script, he's going to have volume and maybe you can get some garbage time out of him as well. So I like the stream.
John, the next streams, I'm really leaning for tight end, guys. We'll shift gears and go to tight end. Tucker Kraft for that of Green Bay Packers at the New York Giants. Very serviceable since Luke Musgrave has gotten hurt. And that of Isiah Likely versus the Rams. Isiah Likely is not Mark Andrews, and we understand that for the Baltimore Ravens. However, he's absolutely somebody that you can stream. He has a medium floor, which means he could get anywhere from 4 to 5 points on the lower end, could be upwards of early lower end double digits. So I like the upside of that of Isiah Likely this week for the Rams.
Love it, man. All right, let's look at some defenses for this week. We're streaming defenses. Who do you like, man?
Texans at the New York Jets. So, hey, any team playing the Jets offense, I like it. So guess what? I'm firing up the Texans defense. John, I also am kind of interested and could stream the Vikings defense at Vegas against Aiden O'Connell. It's not as strong of a start, in my opinion, as the Texans defense. But again, it's really interesting and could be something that would be good. And what's fun fact about the Vikings D, John, at least in our leagues, they're actually 8th in fantasy football in terms of defense, in terms of points right now. So it's an interesting defensive play. And lastly, John, Green Bay Packers D at the New York Giants. I think this is really nice. Tommy DeVito has been cutting up some defenses lately. I just don't see it against that of Green Bay. So I really like the Texans, Vikings, and Green Bay Packers this week for some streaming options.
Packers have a very good pass defense, and I think Tommy DeVito is going to struggle a little bit against these guys. Yeah. Okay, let's take it before we leave here, Frankie. Let's take it one step further for everybody. Okay. We've talked about picking up, if you're sitting in a good place in your playoffs, or you've got a bench spot available, you're going to want to look to next week at maybe a streaming quarterback if you're doing that, and some defenses. Get a week ahead when it comes to playoffs, guys, because then you can get a really juicy matchup. Can you give us a couple of defenses and maybe a few quarterbacks, Frank, that week 15 specifically look good to you? If you can stream, pick them up a week early, guys. You won't have to pay money for them. That's the move. Who do you got?
Guys, Saints D versus that of the New York Giants. If you can scoop up the Saints D this week, do it. You will be very happy. Same thing, Chiefs defense. Maybe they're back on the waiver because of the bye week and things along those lines, right? Pick them up versus the Patriots. That is a smash play from a defensive side of things. Also, 2 other defenses here, Browns D versus Chicago. If for whatever reason you have the ability to pick them up, do so. And the Falcons defense. Falcons have an incredible end of year schedule, guys. In week 15, they're playing the Panthers. What not a perfect matchup for your first week in the playoffs. So those are some defenses that you can get ahead early. If they're available, pick them up, stash them, and get ready to play.
And all of those defenses, by the way, have very good playoff schedules. A couple of those, Falcons, Saints, you can pretty much play throughout the offseason or the postseason for you. So take a look at those. And if you can you want to time it out. You want to have, okay, I've got New Orleans for week 15 and 17. I need a week 16 smash play. Plan your defenses out that way. I know it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it is, because those teams are going to be trying to get them that week. You can get a week ahead, gives you that much of an advantage. You got a couple of quarterbacks, Frank, for streaming that maybe even in 8 to 10 man leagues where you're like, hey, if he's there, this is a great matchup. Look at playing him in your playoffs.
God forbid your quarterbacks get hurt this week. Say a prayer, right? Knowing how all this shit. Yeah,
does
right?
That happen?
It never happens. Possible. Why would that ever happen? Guys, 2 quarterbacks here. Matt Stafford versus the Commanders is the week 15 matchup. Are you kidding me? That's gold. That's gold. And the other quarterback, guys, is Geno Smith. This is a little bit more risky, but I love it. Geno Smith versus the Eagles, week 15. The reason why I love it, guys, is again, we mentioned it, the Eagles' pass defense is terrible. For whatever reason, they're not good this year from the pass D. Geno Smith
against the pass.
Yeah, John, 30th against the pass, and he single-handedly cut up the Dallas Cowboys. I like Geno Smith as a potential streaming option if something were to happen against that of the Eagles, man.
They will not be able to run the ball. Charbonnet, or if Walker's back, they will not be able to run against Philadelphia. But Geno's going to be able to throw. Absolutely. So I love it, man. Great job. Thanks for the help, brother. Hey, everybody. Thank you for watching. That is our show. Look at you rubbing the trophy.
Love it, guys.
All right. Am I going to have to wash that if I win it from you this year?
Well, the problem is I'm going to win it, so I'll just keep it here. Like, you won't even have to worry about it.
All right, first of all, it cannot have 2 years of Frankie bacteria all over it. Please wash it in between seasons, okay? Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Oh, man, next week we've got our playoffs. We're going to be talking about the playoffs. Everything we talk about will be about the week we're on.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking ahead the next 2 weeks because that's how you have to come into the playoffs. You can't just have blinders on for that week. You got to look for the whole time. Assume you're going to win. Make plans for the next week. Guys, please follow us on social media. Instagram, Frankly Fantasy Football, and on Twitter and X, Frankly Fantasy F. And you listen to us everywhere podcasts are found. Please watch us, subscribe on YouTube. Frankie, any parting words for us, brother?
Good luck this week, guys. Continue to stay in tune with some of the injuries. Continue to stay up to date with a lot of these starts and sits. Guys, I want you to dominate your leagues this week. So if you have any questions, you need a little bit of advice, shoot us off something on the YouTube episode or ask us a question on Instagram. We're here for you. Good luck. We love you guys.
May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.